Hello and welcome to VPI Conversations, a video series investigating the virtual public involvement practices that state and local agencies use for transportation planning and project development. VPI Conversations is part of the Federal Highway Administration's Virtual Public Involvement Program, an Everyday Counts initiative. My name is Jim Thorne, and I'm with the Federal Highway Office of Planning. Today I'll be speaking with Jen Higginbotham, Principal Planner from the Indianapolis Metropolitan Planning Organization in Indiana, about surveys, videos, and online meetings through social media. Thank you for joining us today, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Indianapolis MPO and your role there?
The Indianapolis MPO is located in central Indiana. We are a metropolitan planning organization with about 40 members, cities, towns, and counties throughout central Indiana, and we are about 1,500 square miles with about 1.5 million people.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the VPI strategies that you all have used.
We've used a range of different types of technologies, and that goes from videos to online surveys to trying to make sure that we make our meetings accessible.
A little bit about your motivation, why Indianapolis decided you were going to do virtual public involvement. I don't know if it was in lieu of or in addition to your traditional approach to involving the public in your process.
We're not throwing away traditional public meetings. We still feel that they're very valuable for many projects to actually go out and have those face-to-face interactions with people. But we've also noticed that, for example, when we did our long-range transportation plan update last time around, so a few years back, we wanted to have as many opportunities for people to contribute as possible. So we had 2 meetings in each county. It was 16 in-person meetings with staff resources, a presentation, display boards, public feedback, the works. And we averaged about 5 people at each meeting. But recently we've been doing some online live Q&A sessions, for example, on Facebook. And we had one recently for our pedestrian plan. And it was when the plan was almost done and we wanted people to know what was in it, but ask us questions about it. And we had over 600 people either watching that live or viewing it after the fact.
One of the strategies that the Indianapolis MPO has used has been online surveys. Could you talk a little bit about those, what you use them for, how that process worked?
We've used a couple different kinds of surveys online. We have used text-based surveys, which we still feel is a tool in the toolbox when you're talking about public involvement. There is a place for specifically text-based surveys where you're just asking people for some simple responses. But we've also used a tool called MetroQuest, and our pedestrian and bike plan MetroQuest surveys had hundreds of people who took those surveys.
That's interesting because it sounds like you would have a learning curve. I'm just thinking of me learning how that process works.
Honestly, I've learned a lot of things in my career by just Googling. So if you go into Google and say, can Facebook do this for me? Sometimes you'll get an answer and then you're able to just find it. And there's a lot of good resources out there from people that have been looking for the same answers that you are.
Is there like one person who does all the VPI stuff?
Our MPO has 14 people. We don't have a dedicated public involvement person or staff, but we just try to make sure that the people we hire are passionate about public involvement and interested in staying up on new trends and new opportunities and resources available to us.
So you've done some live Q&A sessions as part of different projects. Can you talk a little bit about how those worked and what kind of projects?
We did them for the pedestrian plan that we were working on, and we've done them for a bike plan that we're still working on. For the pedestrian plan, we did a pre-recorded video that was a little overview about the project and why we wanted people to take a survey that was out at that point in time, etc. We wanted to keep it under about 3 minutes, and then we rolled straight into a live Q&A session. We thought it worked out pretty well. We didn't use any sophisticated equipment. We sat in our conference room. We had a cell phone with Facebook queued up on it, and we just kind of did the Facebook Live that way. We did a live Q&A session for our pedestrian plan, and that actually took place. We found out that the building that we work in, the government building that we work in, actually has a little bit of a TV studio in the basement. And so we were able to go down there and take advantage of the resources that already existed.
The Indianapolis MPO also posts short informational videos. So how did that come about? What type of topics? How's that experience been?
We noticed that things like images and videos really get a lot more traffic. And so we wanted to capitalize on that by doing some short transportation related videos. We decided to make those videos topical. And so whenever we have something come up, for example, we had a negative 10-degree day last year that we knew was going to happen. And so the director and I went out on the plaza. I had a cell phone. She was bundled up in a winter coat, and she gave some tips for traveling in the winter, whether you were bicycling or walking or going to a transit stop or driving. And that got a lot of traction. It was kind of our first video that we did, and it was just a little travel tips. We have a little team where we get together and kind of think through what videos might we do for the next 6 months or so. We have staff back in the office just using software that we already have to edit the video in a simple way. We don't do anything super fancy. And then we're able to just put it on Facebook or YouTube.
So Jen, how have you incorporated the public input from the surveys and online meetings into your planning process, into the plans and the projects that you're involved with?
We wanted to ask people what their priorities are for where we should invest in more sidewalks and trails and walkways in our region. And so we had priority questions for them to answer in terms of what should be most important. Should it be where people work and live? Should it be based on health data in the region so that less healthy places have more opportunities to walk? So we had a whole range of things that we asked people to contribute to, and that was able to be a direct influence on how we created our prioritization tool in our pedestrian plan.
So the Indianapolis MPO also has several information dashboards available online. Could you tell us a little about those?
So we have 2 primary dashboards right now, and you can find those by going to IndyMPO.org/dashboards. We created a transit-oriented development dashboard that has some information on some of the parking conditions along the corridors and some other demographic information along the corridors. We have a second dashboard that's focused on safety, specifically crash data. And we put all of this into an interactive dashboard on our website so you can really get a sense for where those serious crashes are happening.
What kind of challenges did you encounter as you implemented virtual public involvement in your planning process?
One of the biggest challenges that every agency, no matter who you are, faces is accessibility to be able to get to those virtual public involvement tools. Another challenge that we've had is just getting used to what's out there. There are so many options for different things that you can use, different companies providing different products. With just things like our videos online and whatnot, it was the cost of, a $20 tripod for our director to use when she just wants to do a quick tips video, and she uses her own cell phone. And we've used cell phones for all of our video capture, and we've used software that we already had access to in order to do video editing. So we haven't spent a lot of money, just staff time, on some of the new things that we've been rolling out.
So Jen, having this experience with virtual public involvement, what tips or advice would you give to someone who's just starting out with VPI?
I would say that it's not go big or go home. You can start small. You can use what you already have. You can ask around and see what equipment you may have. Honestly, just start doing it. The first few things you produce are probably not going to be that great, but once you've done it a few times, you start to get used to it. You start to figure out what works for you, and you start to figure out what people in your community are responding to and what they want to see more of, and then you make more of that, or you ask questions in that way.
Great. Thanks, Jen. So I'm just curious now, as you've got this experience, have worked with a range of strategies and methods, is there a next step that you see for the IndyMPO?
Virtual public involvement for us can really expand the reach of who is not only getting information from us, but who can give us feedback on the things that we're doing. We have a very large region, and for people to come out to a meeting, whether that means that they're taking time off during the day, if it's a daytime meeting, some people work at night, so even evening meetings are inconvenient for a lot of people. But it gives a lot more people the flexibility to actually contribute to the things that we're doing without having the travel time involved or making that commitment to be at a certain place at a certain time when maybe it conflicts with when you have to be at your job or something like that. We want to look more into what I'm calling hybrid meetings, and that's where you are able to have something in person, but you're also able to do it virtually. And people could come and they could be live in the meeting and sit in the room if they wanted to, but they could also watch it on the computer and they could see both the presentation and the presenter in the audience and feel like they were a bit more part of the meeting and give their feedback. Somebody might be taking 45 minutes to get to your meeting and then another 45 minutes to get back to where they live or work. And we don't want to necessarily take a whole 3 hours out of somebody's productive workday if we can help it. But if we can save people a little driving time to get to our meeting, then we'll try to do that.
Thank you again, Jen Higginbotham of Indianapolis MPO, for speaking with us today. If you want to watch more VPI conversations or learn more about virtual public involvement strategies, please visit the website on the screen or click the link in the description. Thanks for joining us.